Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, founder and CEO at recruiting and consulting firm Riderflex. If you think today's tip or guest interview can help someone you know, please share this with them. And if you enjoy listening to our show, please subscribe to our channel and hit the like button on the episodes. Finally, aside from our podcast, our day job here at Riderflex is to provide recruiting, staffing, and consulting services. You can visit riderflex.com to learn more about us and get the information on the services we provide. And now, a quick word from our sponsor and friends at Marketing 360.
Try the #1 marketing platform for small business. Everything you need from design to marketing to CRM. Learn more at marketing360.com. Marketing 360. Fuel your brand.
Kerry Nagle on the Riderflex podcast. Hi, Kerry.
Hi.
You doing all right today?
Doing great. Doing great.
Are you in Denver?
I am just outside of Denver, but in Colorado. I live down south a little bit in Highlands Ranch.
Okay, very good. I live up north. I don't know if you've been up north going into Loveland or Fort Collins lately, but geez, the construction up here, holy cow, man, it is crazy.
They said Fort Collins is the third right behind Denver and Boulder about building and growing and expanding.
I was telling my wife, I said, damn, is every bridge under construction or is that my imagination? Like
It must be that kind of a year.
What I don't know if you know where Johnstown is, just south of Loveland. It used to be a little farm town, but now it almost blends in. When we first moved here 16 years ago, there was like one stoplight.
Things might have changed just a little bit given the influx into Colorado from one stoplight, I've got to imagine.
Big time. Now, are you from the East Coast? Are you from Maryland originally? Where are you from?
So I was born in Baltimore and very young, sub 2 years old. We moved to Michigan. My father was a physician. And so what was supposed to be a year of fellowship turned into 30 years and me growing up there.
Whereabouts?
I was 2 hours north in Detroit, a very small town called Oxford, horse country, dirt roads. I lived on a farm.
Really?
They took field trips to my house. I went to a private school that was just outside Detroit, and they used to take field trips to see our sheep and our goats. And the best of both worlds, the elite private school education growing up and the farm life that I could be, a true 80s kid, if you will.
Okay. So you're the first podcast guest on the show that had a petting zoo at her home when she was growing up.
I have a lot of weird, fun facts that some might not guess of me.
Wow.
Sure.
Did you, so how many acres? I'm just curious.
We were on 32 acres and we had sheep, goats. Yes, I drank goat's milk. It's very healthy for you, but it tastes disgusting.
Cool.
And
Now, did you have to bottle feed? Did you have to bottle feed any calves in the morning before you caught the school bus?
we did not have cows, but I did have to throw hay and pitch stalls at 5 a.m. before we left for school every day. So yes, I was a farmhand.
You know, looking at your LinkedIn profile, like I never would have guessed that. Holy cow. That's pretty good. You know, you got a lot of work ethic from that though. I bet, right? There's a lot to be said there.
I did. And my dad once got interviewed. My parents did for his hospital. And this is a terrible story, but a really good laugh that when they interviewed my mom and said, how do you feel about living on the farm life and having a commute and your daughter dealing with horses? And my mom said, well, if she can handle a 1,500-pound animal, she can handle any guy when she gets older. So, yeah, the work ethic and kind of dealing with different circumstances definitely trained me for the professional world per se.
That is so awesome. Any siblings?
I do. I have two older brothers. They're back east still in Maryland. So living a good life.
That made you even more tougher because you got two older brothers giving you a hard time. Okay. Well, I'm starting to see where all the personality's shaping here. Did your mom just run the farm, run the house, or what'd she do?
My mom was an RN. So my parents met in med school and nursing school simultaneous at Maryland. And she helped put us through school, private school, because she became the health educator there. And then retired after we were all done with high school.
Are they both retired on the farm now?
They are. They are.
Sweet. Do you,
Yeah.
do you go back? You go back? Is that where you like for Christmas or whatever? You go back? Like, everybody, do the brothers come in? Everybody goes to the farm?
So they are now in Virginia. My father has since passed, but they have 130 acres in Virginia with horses on it. And that's where I go for holidays and things of that nature. Absolutely. So
Very cool. Very
yeah.
cool. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. So you grew up there in Michigan. How did you decide where to go to school? I think it's a private liberal arts school. How did you decide where to go? What you wanted to major in? Go ahead.
Really, really funny path. So parlaying from the farm into what I wanted to do with my life, I was pre-vet. So I started, we used to breed dogs, show dogs. Another fun fact, best trainer handler in the state of Michigan for 1991.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, you still have like the award or the plaque or the trophy somewhere?
My parents still have it at their house. I'm very proud of it. So for my 11-year-old self, but
Sweet.
so I was pre-vet, and being in Michigan State had one of the best pre-vet programs in the US at that point. Still does, I believe, today. I had my first semester there and did rounds with the vet students. And, a lot of them, it's a tough road of vet med. It's a lot of species you have to learn the anatomy and how to treat. It's harder actually to get into vet school than it is med school. It's a very hard program. And then simultaneous, Michigan State's that year, we lost in some basketball championships. And unfortunately, there was a little retaliation on campus, and it didn't put Michigan State students in the best light. And when I talked to the admissions director, they said, Michigan State's kind of a big party school. And I said, but I have a 4.0. No, I don't know about that.
Wow.
So I switched second semester into human medicine. My dad's doctor, brother's a doctor, mom being a nurse. And I switched my grandparents were in Maryland. My parents had both graduated in Maryland. My brother was out there in medical school. So I switched to a school called Goucher. And top school education wise, great acceptance into med school. And then along the way, I picked up a second business major and totally veered off after I took everything. So
when you told your parents you didn't want to go to med school, were they like, what? How would that conversation go?
Not at all. My dad always wanted us to pursue what we loved, but have a sound financial mind at hand as well. So a nice yin and yang balance. And my dad said, look, medicine is not what it used to be. It's got a lot of hardship, a lot of compliance, a lot of complexity with the industry. You have to love it if you go into medicine. Eat, sleep, breathe it. It's not about all the rest. So if you aren't eat, sleeping, breathing this, kudos to you, go pursue business. And he actually had encouraged me during kind of my pre-med route to get my business degree, to open up my own practice, or just pick up some life skills. So I literally just picked up an accounting class because I thought this will be good for a life skill. And it forayed into a whole degree, a second degree.
How about that? Wow. It's interesting how life takes these little turns, right? I mean, you just,
Right.
it's so interesting. Okay. And then walk us through your early career. So I noticed you started out as an analyst, but at some point people were like, wait a minute, she's got the people skills for like account management and different things. So somebody steered you in a different direction.
Yeah. So my first internship actually was in pharma. So I've to date had about 6 different industries I've traversed. The core of it was I've always had an analytical mind. And so when I was in college trying to do all the right things with summer internships and jobs, I was an intern at a pharma consulting firm, and I was an analyst for them. And that was a nice cross of my medical and my business degree.
Yeah.
And then when I graduated, it was a pretty tough economy in 2002. Didn't go to med, and then stuck on that analyst route and continued full-time employment with them as an analyst, working on a lot of research projects for some of the biggest pharmaceutical companies.
Now, right there, let me pause right there for a second. At that stage in your life, you were probably what, 22 or 23? Where were you?
Right. Young 20s. Yep.
Okay. Did you know right then, I want to be a C-level executive someday, or that wasn't quite formulated yet? I'm just curious.
That wasn't formulated, but I would say, if you look in retro, there were all these things in my life that I just naturally took a leadership type of role in.
Okay.
In grade school, when we would have downtime in between class, we had these little, we called them clubs. They were not by the school. They were little cliques of friends. And it would just be these silly, like the sticker club and whatever. And I would start a club. In college and in high school, I started a community service group for the school. I just would do things, and it was kind of innate in me. So no, I didn't at that point in my life and my young 20s go, I want to be a C-level. That hadn't entered in quite yet.
But you were always the one, if there was a leadership or somebody to organize things, or if there's a group of people and we're like, okay, where are we going to lunch? Like Kerry's like, yeah, we're going this way. You're one of those. Okay.
Yeah, I am.
Now, I meant to ask you, hold on. I know I'm going backwards, but I'm just curious. You graduated high school with a 4.0. Did you relax in college a little bit? I mean, did you do a little partying? I mean, were you in the library every day, or did you let your hair down a little bit?
A little bit. I did enjoy, I did have fun. I did make great friends. I wish that maybe I'd taken one summer to just work in Ocean City, Maryland, and be on the boardwalk and work at the t-shirt store, have a little less, of a formal job, but of course, all roads lead to something, right? Down, everything happens for a reason.
I was just curious if you were always so serious or if you had a little bit of fun. Okay, I want to go back. I didn't mean to go backwards. All right, so you're moving along in your career. Walk me through a little bit more.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I was at the consulting firm, great group, very small consulting firm. And then, when you're in your young 20s and you're consulting, what are you doing? Not much. You're doing all the grunt work and it's not fun, right? So I actually resigned from that and tried to figure out my next move. And very odd story, I was taking a kickboxing class, and one of the women in there was going after an engineer. And I said, well, while you're handing out jobs, I'm right here. And she's like, are you serious? Here's my card. And so I applied. I almost didn't make the cut. I did nail the job on the final interview. They gave me a slight chance. And that was a company called advertising.com that was eventually acquired by AOL. And they were the first in the industry to do performance advertising. And I became part of a pretty high standard analytic group that ran kind of the margins, if you will, for the company, the demand and the supply side. We were in the middle, and was there for a long time. So EdTech, right on the cusp of the .com bust, and then forayed into, they did online ad network. And then I lucked out, and I did get pulled into a company called Merkle, and that was a learning lesson.
Never heard of it.
Kind of a little company, right? And I learned something really important. I'm not well suited for big companies. I'm not. I want to run at my pace. I want to try things. I want to fail. I don't want to have to ask 3 levels for permission. And no,
I don't pick up on that at all about you. What are you talking about?
Yeah, never. I can't surf the web enough during the day, So you're over there. You're like, yeah, I don't want to do this. Okay, yeah, I can't do this. So it was very shortly after I left that I was recruited into a company called Millennial Media. The COO had worked at advertising.com, recruited me in to head up operations for them. And I was 14th joining there. The overview there was I was there about 7 years. I really went up the ranks and jumped all over the place and gained a lot of skills. Yeah. We went public within 5 years. It was a true.
Did you score on that deal? Did you personally score on that deal?
I was able to take some breaks after it and move to Colorado. So yes.
Nice. All right. Not retire. So you couldn't retire, but you could take some breaks. Okay. All right.
Some breaks after a really hard 7 years with the team. So
nice.
I ran ops. I was over top of part of our sales org. I helped run the IPO, writing parts of our S1.
Great experience. Wonderful experience.
Moved to Singapore. Lived in International for 2 years. Yeah.
Oh, wow. All right.
I lucked out. And
all right. So then you took your cash and you're like, what? I want to go to Colorado and chill for a while, or what?
I stuck it in Baltimore because one of the lessons I had learned is I was very inward facing at those companies. I was eat, sleeping, and breathing. I bled millennial media. I loved it. I believed in it. And then we got to that size and I had learned that lesson. It was time to move on, but ad tech was really evolving. It was a really crowded space. And my next move was I was an SVP by that point, and I wanted to go COO. And I had determined that at the start of Millennial. So it was in my late 20s.
Good.
I had some goals and timelines. And so
what attracted you about that role? What about that position made you say, I want to be one of those?
that's a great question. I don't know if I've ever been asked that. I think it's that at the core of it, first, you're multitasking. Ops is different at every company, and the COO is different, and even different over the time and tenure over a company. And I like kind of having my hands in all the cookie jar parts. I don't want to ever be on the front line. I have never had my sights on CEO at the very helm or an entrepreneur. I like to execute on things. I like things to finish and to win and have success and look at the pieces and the components as you go along, and to see orgs have common goals, divide and conquer, and then come back together on the umbrella to grow the company and move it forward. That's really fulfilling for me.
Was there a COO mentor? Was there somebody you looked towards and said, oh, that person right there?
Absolutely. It was the COO at ad.com that was also a millennial. His name is Steve Root. He's a bit of a Freudian father figure as well. Okay. Steve, I've known since 23 years old. I'm now 41, and he, to this day, we talk very frequently. His daughter and son-in-law moved out here, and I'm giving back to him now. And he mentored me for years. And I just thought, he's brilliant. He has such a way of looking at the big picture, yet jumping into the weeds. And he was just a mentor, an advisor to me.
Oh, okay.
It's great.
All right. Very good. Okay. So I was curious as to whether or not you had somebody you were kind of, a mentor that you were looking towards. All right. So you knew then you wanted to be a COO. Did you start applying for positions then? Did you start calling all the recruiters you knew, telling people this is what I'm going after? Is it you specifically targeted that position?
I did. So, part of what Steve and the rest of the executives at Millennial, there were 4 C-levels, they gave me a lot of opportunity to fail. And I failed a whole bunch, and I learned, but I had a safety net with them. And so I would fail and they would pick me back up. They would guide me, they would mentor me. And I reached kind of a ceiling because we were a public company and I was an SVP and there was no way I was going to be a C-level there. I just didn't have the background. And so I started applying and they all gave me a good push. So I networked. That's when I realized I had been too inward facing and I didn't have as big of an external network, a professional network as I should have for networking for my next opportunity.
Let's pause right there. I want to take a deep breath right there for the listeners. That right there is a critical point. There are a lot of people like yourself right there at that point in their career where they're super smart. They've worked really hard in the jobs that they've had, and they have a very good reputation in a small group of people that know them. But because they're kicking ass at work and they're totally all into their company, they don't take the time to manage their LinkedIn. They don't take the time to do some external networking things because most people like you at that point look at that almost like, well, I don't really need to do that. I'm moving up where I'm at. It's kind of a waste of time. I feel like I'm goofing off if I do that and I'm not focused on my company. It is really important, I think, if you want to move to the C-level, to spend time marketing yourself to the public outside of your immediate network. It is important because when you do decide to make a change, it'll happen faster, right? So yeah. So right then you're like, man, I only have like 150 connections on my LinkedIn. That's not good or whatever. I don't know. I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah. I call it, I came up for air. Right.
Yeah.
And I came up for air and I realized, man, now I'm going to people to network with them, but I'm needy. And if anybody knows the East Coast, yes. I love my East Coast network, but it's not as easy to always get a meeting. And if you're approaching somebody for the first time with an ask rather than a give, yes. That's a hard situation to be in. And so I wholeheartedly agree with you. You network when you don't have to. Yes. So when you need to, it's push to you, it's not a pull from you.
Yes.
And I
Great
really
advice.
believe in that. I also, one of the things that I had realized is this is in a big piece of advice that I give people. I tell, it doesn't matter where you are in your career, you should have a personal advisory board. So, right, you have boards for companies and you have advisors. Why are you any different? And I think a personal advisory board shouldn't be just your former executives, right? They should be people that are distanced away, that you can be very open and vulnerable with, that are all different disciplines to give you a different perspective. Sometimes they slap you around, sometimes they lift you up. Yep. They give advice and they are looking out for your best interest, not a dual-sided. And so that was another realization. My personal advisory board was basically the same cohort of people that I just worked with. And I needed to expand that. And so I took a good year to really network and build that. And that was my biggest mission, like a job, was to expand my professional network.
Really good stuff. Okay. And then at some point you contacted, somebody introduced you, somebody got you straighter line, which I was not familiar with, but then you landed the first big COO job. Boom.
That's right. I was introduced actually through a network that my resume was handed to the recruiter. They are based in Baltimore. They're an EdTech company that does low-cost online education. Couldn't be more relevant today than ever. And growing like gangbusters. And we were a pretty small company. I was running most of the teams there. We grew, we were profitable, double-digit numbers, really evolved. And they actually were acquired last year in 2020, which was great.
Wow. Okay. Did you score on that? Did you score on that, or you were already gone?
I have left, but you know, I believe very much in the team and the company there. And so you know, it's always nice to reap when you've worked there for several years.
Okay, I think I know what the answer. Okay, got it. Thank you for answering that.
Yeah.
All right.
And
why did you get recruited away, or why'd you leave?
So I'm intertwining all this personal stuff, but during this time, at the end of my millennial tenure, I met my now husband, and he lived north in Jersey and PA. We moved in.
Did he work? How'd you meet him?
Through my best friend who works in his industry and tried to matchmake us for 2 years. And I was too busy and living abroad and focused on work.
And then finally one day you met at a restaurant and it was magic right away, or it took a while?
Magic right away.
Oh, really?
First date, you know, my friend joined us. It was the three of us at a table. And I was like, wow, this guy is smart. We share interest and cool. He's great. And I think this is going to go somewhere. And we have a common interest of Top Gun. So, you know, what else do you need?
Now I'm hoping he's not a type A / I'm going to make sure everybody's organized and be in charge. Because if he is, you guys would be killing each other.
We're opposites attract. We have the foundation that's common, right? Our beliefs, our direction in life. But yes, we're a little yin and yang.
Okay, well, that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing.
It is. It is. So we moved together to Delaware, and I was commuting from Delaware to Baltimore, which took me about 2 hours each way every day with my then golden retriever. And my mother said to me one day, after commuting to private school a long time of my life, you know, the drive, you could die on it, and a job's not worth it. I'm like, oh, Mom, you're so dramatic. And then what happened is one day I almost hydroplaned and went into a wall, and it freaked me out.
Wow.
And I got in, told my husband it's time, because we had toyed for a very long time with going somewhere that was more outdoor driven, because we have an excessive amount of hobbies. And we talked about it, but it was, this is a great company. I don't want to leave. And then finally, it was kind of that wake up call of we're in our late 30s. If we're going to move, it's now or never. We don't have children, or not going to. And so it was like, all right, we're free to make these choices. And so I turned in my resignation. I put in another 6 months, and we moved to Colorado.
With no job?
No job.
What about him? He moved with no job too?
So he has worked for the same company since he was 20. He works for a company called GLI, that's a pole manufacturer. Okay. And he transferred out, but I moved first in December of 17. Okay. I moved on my own to be here to network. I learned my lesson, and I networked. I knew nobody in Colorado. And then
Had you been to Colorado, by the way? Had you visited? Had you skied or whatever?
Yeah, so I looked at a bunch of cities and states: Colorado, North Carolina, Utah, Austin. I've been out here skiing. And it's
Okay.
a very full circle story. Is when we came out on a fun week, I tapped my network and said, who knows somebody in Colorado professionally? I got one introduction. And on that fun trip, I met one guy. He is my today CEO that we have known for 4 years, trying to get a time that, things would magically light up. And it just did this year. So,
Wow, that's great. Wow,
yeah,
very cool. Very
yeah.
cool.
So I
Okay.
came out without a job and networked for a while, and my husband followed out after and transferred with his company.
And you've been in Colorado for how long?
About 4 years, going on 4 years this December.
So just so you know something about me personally here, I worked in DC/Baltimore. So the company I worked for was basically between Baltimore and DC.
Okay.
And so I know the area, not as well as you do, but I lived there in a corporate apartment for 3 years and flew back and forth because my primary home was in Colorado.
Yeah.
Nothing against anybody listening to this podcast that lives in that area, but there is just no comparison whatsoever. There's no way. I remember my wife and I watched the 4th of July at downtown DC, and the White House was not far away because we got invited to the special place, and she was standing on top of the roof in some of the row housing districts downtown. And she looked at me, she's like, I ain't never moving here.
Interesting. Okay. Well,
Yes. I can see why. So I'm guessing you love it here. I'm guessing
I
I
love
don't
it
know.
out here. I love how healthy people are. I love all the activities the state provides. And I was blown away at the tech community here and how
Yes.
open and welcoming, and how can I help you? And let's integrate you in right away. And
Yes. Yes.
my now CEO was part of the reason I came here, because I was told by 2 executives, make sure you come out in September to Denver Startup Week. And I'm like, there's startup weeks everywhere. And they're like, no, this is unlike any. And I came, and my now CEO literally physically walked me around making introductions. And I had 30 people giving me their business cards and saying, how can we help you, from execs, VCs, folks that were retired and just come, investors, and it was really great. I do miss aspects. I love my Baltimore network. I love my family and friends, of course, and I miss crab cakes and the beach.
Okay. So you beat me to it on the crab cakes. Well, seafood in general, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the things that I would say I loved about it were the seafood. I mean, you just cannot really get the same thing here, especially when it comes to crab cakes. The other thing I would give the East Coast is things move quicker. I mean, people are, you better have your shit together when you're moving around in DC and Baltimore.
If you couldn't tell by my rate of speech,
Yes.
when I first landed here, everybody said,
Slow down, girl.
slow down, and you must be from New York. And I learned a valuable lesson when they say, what do you do? In the East Coast, it's, what do you do for work? Here, when they say, what do you do? It's, do you mountain bike? Do you ski?
Right.
And they're like, well, you'll learn our culture soon. So eventually.
And what are the outdoor hobbies, real quick, before we do the CyberGRX overview? What is your favorite?
Yeah. Favorite is horseback riding. That horse girl never left the farm.
Okay.
Ski, rock climb, mountain bike. We hike, we paddleboard, we dabble in a whole lot. I am mediocre at a whole bunch. My husband is expert in a lot, and I just try and hold pace with him. But riding will always be my favorite sport.
I want to ask you a quick question here about Colorado and the outdoors. This is a new kind of fun topic I like to ask people, especially that live here. So I'm a huge mountain guy myself. I've probably been 15 times this summer, camping and ATVing and all of it. I just do all of it. But what is your current thought on campfires? It's a tough, I think that's such a tough topic, right? Like I personally love having a campfire. I think it's a huge part of going camping, but I traveled up to northern Colorado and southern Wyoming, and I've seen, I personally drove through the devastation, and it is just gut wrenching. And so, I'm torn on this. Like, man, should we eliminate those? Like, I don't know. What's your thought on it?
I'm like you. I'm really torn. When I go camping, I really love a good fire, especially I'm a s'more girl. So like, that's
Yeah.
like my 8-year-old self just has the best time. But having a friend last year and near Lake Granby have to evacuate her home, and the videos seeing the fire next to her homes with her children and everything, it really brought it home. And especially this year, we're suffering from all the smoke from California and Oregon and all over. And we've had so many people come here the last several years, but especially last year and a half, that I don't think are educated to the outdoors and how to behave and what to do, and what a small thing that they could misstep on could have a ripple effect for a lot of others in a really monumental way. So I go, no fires unless there's a plethora of rain. It's too risky, and most people don't know how to take care of them properly. So unfortunately, we have to suffer that. And we even got a little propane fire pit thing for the morning to like put our hands and warm up.
So we just came back from a camping trip with one of those. I bought one this recently.
Right.
I said, screw it. I don't, even if there's not a fire ban, I'm just taking this, because I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we'll get off this topic because I want to go into CyberGRX. But I will tell you, when I was driving through, because we were ATV forest road people, and I was driving through some areas of southern Wyoming, and I lost it. I was by myself. I'd had a couple of beers. And so I pulled over, and I was crying. Like, I was like, man, this is like, okay, this is not cool. Like, you can't do this. So anyway, I never thought I would vote with you, but yeah, I'm kind of with you right now. All right. So CyberGRX, you are second in command there behind your friend that you've known for a while and followed there, right? Give us the CyberGRX overview. Tell us what they do. Give us a 3-minute elevator pitch. Go for it.
Yeah, so I'm not our CRO, so my elevator pitch will not be as eloquent, but it's a great company. CyberGRX has been around for about 5 years. We are a third-party risk management solution in the cyberspace that helps companies really reduce risk through an exchange. So our exchange has our members on both sides, and our customers who are looking at all of their vendors or their third parties that they're working with, and looking at the controls, what poses high risk to a cyber attack, medium, low, et cetera, their whole portfolio view. On the other side, we work with the third parties who have to satiate all of these customers they work with on how their cyber posture really is and their reputation. And that becomes pretty arduous, right? If you think of the thousands of customers that some of these third parties are working with, they fill out, data for them. And that data can be really cumbersome if it's a little tweaked for everybody. So we've standardized that data at different levels, and we facilitate on our platform the two sides to come together and really work as a community. So a two-sided exchange. To date, we have just on the cusp of 10,000 third parties who we have data that have contributed. Several hundred customers, it's really great. And what's really fun for me, this is a new industry, having just come off of oil and gas and cryptocurrency, and I've traversed a lot. This could not be a more important industry in our society today.
Agreed.
We're all keenly aware of the attacks going on. And what a lot of people I learned, through meeting our CEO, Fred, was, it's over 60% of the attacks that happen at companies happen through their third parties.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so it's something that people kind of might not put at the top of their priority list, but it's becoming a more pressing, a higher priority for everybody now, given the attacks, given where our society's going. So it's really great. We're on a really great trajectory, and it's a fun time to be in this industry.
So can I use my own company as an example? So all right. So we use as a recruiting firm, Riderflex uses something called Jazz HR for our applicant tracking system. We use HubSpot for sales. We use Google Drive to store some files. We use Lead IQ to hunt down phone numbers and addresses of people we're trying to get a hold of. We use all these different things, right? Just like you said, all these little third parties that we use. Would a company like ours say, "Hey, CyberGRX, here's all the people we use. Can you make sure they're secure? And we want to run, and do we run our information through you to them, or you're just checking to make sure what they're doing is okay?"
So we're facilitating bringing the sides together in a standardized way with a lot of feature and tools to help the customer. So if you were a customer, you can be a dual-sided member, but if you came in as a customer, you would submit, okay, HubSpot, I have my ATS, I have Lead IQ, run it through your system, and which one poses, given how I work with those third parties, which are my high risk, medium risk, and low risk. So first, we're going to help you of your thousands possibly of third parties, which pose the highest potential risk to you. Mm-hmm. And then you would determine with your team, okay, I'm going to take a little bit deeper of a look at the data. I need that data on that third party, and you would get it standardized across your vendors, your third parties. And then you would take a look at, or your security team rather, would take a look and say, boy, I'm concerned about this control or this control. Let me work with that third party and address this because I have a concern that it could, pose a potential threat or a risk. Okay. And then the third parties on the other side, somebody, let's say like Cisco or ADP or one of our third parties, right? They have thousands upon thousands of customers.
Yes.
So getting that data over to those customers when they need it, it's arduous, it's cumbersome, it's a lot. So via us, they can fill out all their data and they can share it for free with all of their customers and save a lot of time, and then get to the real crux of the issue, which is where are the risks, not the actual work to get to the data itself. So I make an analogy with LinkedIn. LinkedIn, you're bringing two sides together as an exchange of information and data, but it also independently provides value for both sides of the constituents on the platform. LinkedIn doesn't do the work for you. It facilitates the community coming together.
Can you tell LinkedIn not to charge me so much? Because they're our most expensive vendor.
I wish I had school over there, but
wow. Yeah. Well, who's your target customer? Small, mid-size, big companies, Fortune 500? Like, who are you targeting?
So we work with everybody. We have some smaller companies and we have very big ones. I named two of our constituents, the ADPs, the Googles, the Ciscos, for example, are partners of ours, are members on our exchange. So we work with all sizes, but really our target is working with the security teams, right? CTOs, CIOs, CISOs. Yep. And they vary on size, right? This poses a threat to everybody. It could be a mom and pop shop, or it could be a huge retail customer, right? Okay. So an enterprise corporate level account. So we really work with all different sizes on our platform.
Do you have companies as small as 10 million in revenue?
I don't know that for sure, but I would, because I'm a new kid here, so I haven't poured through all the data, but probably.
Okay, just curious. Okay, very good. And no specific industry. You're industry agnostic, I guess.
We work with, of course, our early adopters were those who are regulatory and compliance driven. Those tended to be the people that were all over security for compliance and risk mitigation, right? This is such a big issue now that different verticals are really taking a hard look. This is getting elevated to higher levels, getting more budget put towards it. And therefore, we're working across all verticals. We work with anybody. Some are a better fit than others based on their teams and what they're seeking to do in working with us.
Is it project-based for one-time fee? Is it a monthly fee? Is it ongoing service? What's a subscription model, or what is it?
It's a subscription model. We tend to do multi-year deals because this is not a one and done. This is an ongoing landscape that we're always addressing, and our members are always taking a look at. Even if their ecosystem, their company, and how they're working with vendors or third parties is not changing, the world around us is changing, right? And so constantly ourselves as a company, and then our members are always looking at their risk profile and reputation and trying to mitigate as much as they can.
Now that you're in this industry and you're working in this and it's all about security and all that, are you a lot more scared at home? Like, are you like now are you like, holy shit, I didn't, but you have to put the cover over your camera even when the camera's off. I mean, are you acting different personally now that you're in this industry? I'm just curious.
It's really funny. It started before this company. When you're in ad tech and far before, I was there before the smartphone came out at a mobile ad tech company, right? Millennial. You learn about how much data somebody's collecting on you, and you start to go, do I want all this data shared? Right. Sometimes it's really advantageous, right? I get free stuff. Stuff is catered to me. It can be really great. But that can start as a consumer. You go, wait a minute here. And then I worked for a cryptocurrency company, and they're very secure, highly protected, take it very seriously. And so my next level of security came working there. And then I think here we have a wonderful CISO who has really educated me. Reading a lot of the cyber attacks that you listen a little bit more on. It hasn't changed my personal behavior other than maybe my passwords are that much more complicated, adding those characters and not using, my birthday or whatever. But, that's just good hygiene for anybody these days. But it's definitely risen up in profile top of mind more than it did before I formally worked here. Yeah.
Can I ask you this? I'm going to ask you two sensitive topics that are out there right now, and then we'll move towards some advice to reach the COO level. But a couple of sensitive topics around this collecting data and just all of this stuff. Does it scare you that Facebook and Google and everybody are collecting all this information on us and listening in or whatever? I don't know. Does that bother you at all? Does it scare you a little bit? I don't know. What's your reaction to that?
Being professionally raised in an industry since, the early 2000 mark, we were collecting PII, a long time ago, right? Metadata information, what's their favorite music? Who are their friends? What's their network? Oh, look, they drove from here to here. They like this friend. I saw the benefits to it of the free content, what ads could provide people. And moreover, it was catered, right? It was relevant content, right? Certain news stories or things in my feed. It doesn't bother me as much as I think a lot of other folks, because I've been in these industries where I see how data helps as well. I'm also, I have stock I bought from Facebook very early on. So I'm a big believer in Facebook and Google, and I benefit from a lot of the services. I am a Facebook member. I use Google a lot, and I see the benefits to it. Are there times where maybe my Amazon Alexa lights up and says something when I haven't said her name, and I'm like, oh, they're listening to every conversation? Yeah, that can sometimes get a little uncomfortable for me. And we might unplug our Alexas here and there, or unplug our Furbo dog camera that sometimes just lights up. There's a bit of, how much is getting collected, but I see a lot of benefit.
Should Google and Facebook be able to turn people off or turn people on and decide what goes out there and cancel people?
I don't know about canceling people. That's a hot topic.
I know. That's why I'm asking you.
I think if it's a public safety issue, yes. I think a lot happens on platforms and social media, and there's things in the news that you hear and the context clues are there, but it's privacy laws and all this. And I think when it could pose a public safety threat, or I do think that there is a mechanism of watching out for misinformation and preventing something that could have a ramification greater than just words on a platform. So
okay, I know it's a touchy, sensitive topic. I just thought you're kind of in this field of data collection, so I just wanted to ask you. Okay, let's get into being a COO. We got about 10 minutes here. What would you, based on what you've learned so far, what are 2 or 3 things you'd say right away to a brand new COO that called you up and said, Kerry, I just got the job. I'm a COO now. What would you say?
obviously, congrats and buckle up would be my first phrase out of my mouth. But I think, I'd give a couple pieces of advice that I didn't learn or know is acceptable. And some of that I think comes with tenure in the working world, and some of it comes with different levels of positions. Mine kind of hit simultaneous. I was a relatively young first-time COO. And, you feel this responsibility to have all the right answers and be perfect and, hold your own and not let anybody see weakness. And that's wrong. Like, it's okay not to have the answer. In fact, it's good if you say, I don't know, be vulnerable, be honest, and then work really hard to understand the challenges and bring an answer or bring a solution or get others to help you. And I think a lot of first times execs fear being vulnerable or making mistakes. Mm-hmm. I think with that as well, it's really important as a first time C level. You're like, all right, I'm in the shoes. I've got to be perfect. I can't fail. Actually, we all make mistakes. So fail. And when you fail, I think there's something to admitting that, and not just to maybe your peers, the other executives, your directs and the company, because a lot of companies say it's okay to fail here, but folks don't trust that. Companies don't always uphold that. And so if you make a mistake, wear it, own it, admit it. And then what are you doing after? That's what really the sign of a leader is. Have empathy for your staff. I think there were times where I'm like, I'm the C-level now, but I wasn't that far removed from being, a VP and an SVP and having to take the higher levels, giving a strategic view and having to translate down into the technical org of how you're tactically going to execute. So have empathy for your staff. Don't forget, just because you're at the top, roll up your sleeves, help them, be part of it. While you're learning the no role, don't forget what it was like to be in their shoes. Pitch in, admit mistakes, help them out. And the last is that back to that advisory board. Leverage it, leverage it, leverage it. I would have been lost without it. I needed to be hoisted up sometimes when I feel like I wasn't cutting it. Sometimes when I was a little cocky and big for my britches, I needed, there's a horse analogy, I needed to be slapped around a little bit. And sometimes I just needed to bounce stuff off somebody and go, am I doing this right? Am I acting the way I should? Am I executing the way I should be? Am I thinking the right way for the company and for the team? And listening to them, taking advice and putting into action. So that advisory board, if you don't have one entering it, hurry up and have one and build one. It'll really serve you well, especially as a first-time exec.
Love that, Kerry. What about, you said earlier, I don't want to be, I don't want to be a CEO. I want to challenge that a little bit. Why? Have you completely shut that door? You've said this is it. My next step would be, I don't know, you grow CyberGRX to $1 billion and they get bought, and then you go be a COO for a Fortune 500 company. But you'll never be a CEO. Have you closed the door on that?
I have, I did twist my career a little bit. I was a chief people officer and also did chief people officer duties under COO as well. And, and I've run all the functions, but legal and finance. And for me, COO is my sweet spot. I really enjoy being a COO. I really enjoy startup to growth stage companies. I have no desire to go to a bigger firm, Fortune, whatever. And CEO, yeah, I've closed the door. I've had some opportunities. I really revere CEOs, especially CEOs that are entrepreneurs. I think they have a very tough job. The vision to not listen to naysayers, to push through, to really hold the line on a lot of things. And they're that figure, right? They're where everybody looks to, what's the vision? Where are we going? And they have to hold externally that, facade in that relationship. And that's kind of just not my jam. I'm a behind the scenes person. I like to execute. I like to look through data. I don't need to be external. I don't need to be at the helm. And I just don't desire that. I'm not the best visionary. I can be strategic and creative, which is fun, but I'm not a visionary. And most people that know me would be like, yeah, Kerry's going to listen to naysayers, or she's going to tell you why it can't work and then plan for it to go. Not great for a COO. Plan for the worst, hope for the best, right? CEO, you want to be a bit more optimistic than I sometimes am in business. So I respect quite a bit all the CEOs and entrepreneurs I've worked with and for, and it's just not something that I think my path is going to lead me to.
But you're perfect for a messy, visionary, creative person that isn't tactically sound. You're perfect balance for that person.
Yeah, it's a good, just like my relationship, it's a good yin and yang. Absolutely.
Right. So your husband, he like leaves clothes on the floor, doesn't put the salt and pepper back where it's supposed to go, stuff like that.
He's pretty good, actually. I will say he's actually pretty neat, but I will jump to clean something a little bit sooner, or I can't relax until I clean. He can know the value of relaxing even if the kitchen isn't clean, right? But I'm actually very lucky. My husband's a pretty neat guy in general.
I am going to use that line with my wife this evening. The value of relaxing, even though things aren't perfectly straight. The value of relaxing. That's a good one. I'm going to use that because she's like, I'm you in the relationship, and my wife is your husband in the relationship. And she'll just look at me and she'll be like, she'll like, will you just sit down, please? Will you just stop? Will you just stop it?
Yeah, it's very hard for me to sit down until things that are on my to-do list are in order, and then I can relax. My husband very much has much better balance than I do, and really make sure to take some time every day.
Two final questions. I know we're almost out of time. One is, if you could call the young lady coming out of college at the age of 21 and tell her anything now, or maybe, you know what, for you, I think we should go back further. If you could call the young lady graduating high school and tell her anything that she should do differently based on what you know, what would you tell her?
Listen more.
Okay.
Build more professional connections outside, teachers, things like that. They have connections. And I think being okay with change, not worrying about setting such a path up. You can plant your checkered flag. You can always move it. You can always move it.
I like that. That's good. Now, see, I thought you were going to say something like, yeah, I should have had a little more fun in college. Maybe that's why I went back to high school, but that's okay.
I guess I would have take that Ocean City summer job at the t-shirt shop. Yeah, I probably would say relax a little bit there.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then the last question is, if you had to define your core purpose in life, kind of think bigger picture, when you're looking up at the stars and you're like, okay, what exactly am I doing on this blue ball floating around in this black space? How would you define your core purpose if you had to put it in a sentence or two?
That's a hard question. I think if I put in light of work, right? A lot of people would put family and things. Yeah. For me, for work is I facilitate and enable scalable growth. And that's for the company as a whole and individuals. I really thrive on helping others learn from things I've learned, on giving them opportunities like I was giving, passing it down per se, and trying to help them navigate. And I think that enabling them, giving them opportunity, helping them focus on the right things, clear through some of the noise. I take pride in that in my career. And I think that that's a big purpose that I serve, is just to help facilitate a lot.
Great stuff, Kerry. Awesome. Really appreciate you being on the Riderflex podcast and sharing your story. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful.